Hi there. In today's video, I'm continuing my project where I'm cloning the ChatGPT user interface using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So here's what I have so far. We have almost completed the sidebar of the interface. So we have this sidebar here with all these conversations, and we can also hide the sidebar and show it. And we have this fading of the conversation text when it gets too long. And we have this user menu with an animation where it appears and disappears. Now we're still missing a couple of things from this sidebar, like these edit and delete buttons. We should have some icons there. And also if I scroll down, these headers like yesterday and today should stick to the top. So if I go to the actual ChatGPT, if I scroll down, it will keep the yesterday up there and it will change to today when I go up there. But since I already used 2 hours to make this sidebar, then I am going to continue with the main area. And then we can do some finishing touches in the end. So let's do the main area. So we have this selector of GPT 3.5 or GPT 4. Then we have this area for the messages and then the message box down here. And if I actually open a conversation, then the selector disappears and it only says which model we are using, and then we get our messages here. And these are just separated by different colors. And when we scroll this down, it is in fact scrolling the whole page. So that means that the message box here is a position fixed so that it's in the bottom. Or in fact, it might be position absolute, and then we have just a scroll bar in this message area. So let's start by doing these buttons. So how do these look like? There's like a dark background, and then we have this lighter background on this button, and if we click there, then this one is selected. So basically it's just 2 buttons. It's not even a slider, it's just 2 buttons. So let's start with that. Let's add some sort of container for those buttons. So we already have the main area here. So I will create a div which will have a class of model selector. And in here, I will create 2 buttons. So this will be GPT 3.5, and I'll add one for GPT 4. Is this how they are written here? Yes. And of course, we have some icons again. So let's see, first of all, what will that look like? It will look like this. So what we have to do is we have to make the model selector display flex. So let's do that. Let's add model selector display flex. So this should put them side by side. Great. And then there should be some sort of padding and there should be some margin between them. So in fact, what I can do is say gap is 8 pixels and I can say actually padding as well. Padding 8 pixels. And if I go back here and I refresh, then we have some padding, which is probably too much. And let's also add that black background to this, which is not really black, but this color, whatever that is. So I am going to get a screenshot again, and I am going to check what the color is. And my neighbors are doing some trimming of the grass. I hope that my microphone doesn't pick that up, or I can edit it out. But I am going to select this color, which is this one, and I am going to use that as the background of the model selector. And let's go and take a look. And it looks nice, but we should not have a border on the unselected model. So let's do that. First of all, we have to have a border radius of maybe 15 pixels, maybe not 15 pixels, 10. Okay, and we should have less margin, so let's do padding 5 and gap 5. Okay, that looks more like it. But then I have to say model selector button border 0 or none. And then I have to add a class to one of them, which will be selected. And then I'll add a style to the selected one. So I'll say model selector button selected will have border 1 pixel, solid, and I have to get the color from somewhere. It is probably this one. So let's do that. Okay, now we have a selected one here. And in fact, the selected one should have this background. So let's go here. I believe that the background is the same for both of these. Yes. So I am going to pick this one. And in fact, the border might be a different color, but I will say background is going to be that. And let me get the color of the border as well. So it will be that. So in fact, it is different than this one. So let's go take a look. What does this look like? That looks pretty good. Now it should be some bold text. So let's make it bold. Let's say font weight bold. And I will also make this centered. So I can probably do margin 0 auto. And in fact, I am going to do margin 30 pixels auto. And it does not move it in the middle because it doesn't have a width. So how do you center a div in CSS? That is the problem. I could make this display inline block. And if I then go back here, it does not work at all. So what if main, I don't have main yet, so I will add main here. What if main is display flex? Then it is going to look like this. And if I say align items center, and I say justify content or items, I'm not quite sure which one I have to use, and I say space between, then this will be in the middle. But I want it to be in the middle this way, horizontally. So how do I do that? Align content center. What is the difference between items and content? How do I center this thing? Main is display flex. And how do I make it center? Flex start, then it's going to be there. But then how do I make it in the middle? Flex wrap, flex direction. Does this need to have like a width 100%? Yes, it does. So I have to do width 100% and align items, flex start, align content center, justify content space between. I might not need that one. Okay, now it's in the right place and it should be a little bit higher and it should be a little bit wider. So I'm going to do 20 pixels auto. Do I have to even have this? I do have to have that. So now it looks a little bit better. I have to have like 22 pixels. And now it looks pretty much the same. Maybe it's a little bit higher. So let's do 24. And I need to make them wider. So I will say that the buttons are going to have a width of 200 pixels. Are they that wide? I refreshed the wrong page again. Okay, that's a bit too much. And it should have text align center. And I will put it to 130 pixels. And still should be a little bit bigger. And there should be more border radius. So I'll make it 150. And I will add a border radius of 13 pixels. And I'll add the same to this one. Except this should be smaller, I guess, so that it will align. Okay, that looks a bit nicer. But there's still a little bit too much padding in there. So I have to change it to 3 pixels and gap 3 pixels. And that is too little, so I have to say 4 pixels. Okay, that looks almost exactly the same. The border radius is a bit too much on mine, so I am going to say 11. And this is going to be 9. And now it looks almost identical. What is the difference? There's a bit more padding in the buttons, but I'm not sure if I care about that. And when I hover, the other one should lose opacity. So the other one should have like 0.8 opacity. And there is no hover effect on that. So I will do this model selector button hover background should just be none, or do I have a background in there? Yeah, now nothing happens, but the other one should go dark. That's interesting. So this is by default full opacity, but when I hover over GPT-4, then the other one will lose opacity. So can I do that with CSS? So I can at least do this. Hover means that opacity is 1, and otherwise I can say opacity is 0.8, and I have to add like a selected. I have selected already, so selected opacity is 1. And again, I refresh the wrong page. They're looking so similar already. So now when I hover this, it actually changes color. But I think there's a bigger change there. So it should be like 0.5 maybe. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, now it changes like that. But the other one should lose opacity when I do that. So how does that work? I think I have to use JavaScript for this. Although I'm sure there's some way to do it in CSS, but I am not intelligent enough to do that. Especially because it has to work the other way. Because when I select GPT-4, then GPT-4 has to go dark when I hover over GPT 3.5. So let's leave it at that for now. And then let's add that hover text to this. So we get this text about our fastest model, and here we get something else. So let's do that. Can we in fact do that in CSS? I mean, technically, if we added something inside this button, so if we have a div and we call this, what is this, a tooltip? This is not really a tooltip. Let's call it model info. And we say something here, hello, and let's add the same in here. So then what we can do is we can go here and we can say that model info will be position absolute. And we also have to set the buttons to be position relative. And then we can say that the background will be black, maybe it's this black, and color will be white. And we can do, in fact, bottom 0 and left 0. And then we can do transform, translate Y 100%. So then it should move down its whole width, so it should be under the button. So if we refresh this now, then we have these texts here. Now, in fact, the text should be in the same position, not offset like this. So in fact, I won't add the position relative to the button. I will add the position relative to the model selector. And then when I go here, then now they are on top of each other because they are relative to the model selector, not the buttons. And then I can do this. So if I say, hello, I am GPT 3.5, and hello, I am GPT 4, and then I can do this. I can say that model info is display none, but model selector button hover model info is display block. Then what will happen is we don't see anything, but when we hover over one of them, it will say, hello, I am GPT 3.5, and here it will say GPT 4. And then we can actually add the text. So let's try to copy. We cannot copy this, so let's try to remember what it says. Our fastest model and something else. And it was in a different color, so I will put like a span here, and let's see again what it says. Available to free and plus users. Available to free and plus users. Great for most everyday tasks. Okay, and then GPT-4, our most capable model. Great for creative stuff. It says something like that there. And span available for plus users. Whatever, that is enough. And if we then go back here and we refresh, Then we get this, and we get this one. So now I need to style it a bit better. So let's add some padding to this, like 15 pixels and border radius 15 pixels. And what else? That looks already pretty good, but here it looks like that. So first of all, I need to get the color. It is not that black. So let's take a screenshot and let's see what the color is. It is this one. So I'll add it there. And we also have to add some margin. Now, here's the problem when you do this with CSS. When I go over the button, it will disappear. But in ChatGPT, I can actually move my mouse over here. So I guess what we could do is we could like add a container around this. If I really fast go here, then I can move it here. So if we add a container around this and we move that higher, but we make the background transparent, then we should be able to do it. So if I go here and I add here like a div, and I also add a div here, and I guess we could call it something, model info box, and we do the same here. Then if we go here, we have to add model info box, and this will get all of this border radius and padding and the background and the color, but this will get all of the positioning. And in fact, I will add padding, let's say 30 pixels. So this padding will in fact be our margin to move it lower. And since we have, I think it was 4 pixels of padding in the model selector, then we are going to have to add to the bottom of this 4 or maybe 5 pixels because of the border. So it will actually move up a little bit. So if we refresh this now and we go here, then we can actually move our mouse around here because we have the invisible wrapper around here. But if we go over it, then it disappears. So now it actually works. Now there's a little bit too much padding there, so I will just put 20 and it will look like this. And this one looks kind of the same. It's a little bit closer, so let's make it 15 pixels. Okay, that's pretty good. And now we can change between these and we can hover over it. And in fact, we can't even select here. Is this because it's a button? Did they do the exact same thing here? Is this a button? But there's no, the cursor is not pointer here. Can I click this? I cannot click, but here I guess I can click this. Anyway, it works. And I might in fact change the model info to have cursor default. So now it changes to this one. Great. And I guess I should make these paragraphs so that they will actually be on separate lines. So instead of using a span, I will say P, and this will be P as well, and that will be P, and this one. And I will add some class to this one, like secondary something. Not sure what to call this. And then I can add here that secondary will have a color of, maybe I will even add P secondary. And I will add some color to it, which will be that, which I will again, oh, I can't take a screenshot of that. I can't. So, in fact, I have it here already. So let's take this color and let's copy it and put it here. And let's refresh. And now it looks pretty nice, but we should make it text align left, and there's a bit too much margin in there, or padding. So I am going to first of all say model selector P margin is 0, 0, 15 pixels 0, so that we don't have a margin at the top. And I am going to say that the padding will be 15 pixels, 15 pixels, 0, 15 pixels, so that we don't have a padding in the bottom. But wait a minute, why did it do that? If I do this, then there's too much padding. So should I have like 10 pixels or 5 pixels? Okay, that looks pretty good. How does this one look? There's more margin here. So I will add, in fact, 20 pixels and this This can be probably 10. And that looks nice. Then I will make it text align left. Okay, that looks pretty good, but the main text should be bigger. So let's make it bigger. Let's say font size is 1.1 EM and the secondary font size will be 1 EM. And refresh, and that looks nice. That's almost the same as this. Now the font is different, but whatever. Still looks pretty good, I think. Now, I guess I could add that default button there. I'm not going to do the plugins button because I don't want to do all this stuff. And I don't have plugins in my ChatWTF project either. So I'm only going to add the default button there. So let's see what happens if I add here just a button and I call it default. And I refresh, then it is over here. So in fact, I have to say model selector direct descendant button. And this one as well, and that one, and this one. So if I now refresh, it's still there. Why is it there? I am not sure what is going on here, why it does that. Let's inspect. So is that in fact, yeah, it gets this style. How is that possible? I thought this means that it has to be a direct... Wait a minute. Why is it there? I can't have a button inside a button. So that is the problem when doing stuff like this. So I will leave this for later. We are going to figure it out later. I want to actually make some progress in this video because I'm 50 minutes in already and I have only created this model selector that I can't actually even select yet. So how do we make it so that we can actually select GPT-4? Well, we need to add some JavaScript. So let's do this. Let's say that const models is document query selector all of model selector button. And I guess I need to loop through each of them and add the event listener to each of them separately. So I guess I can do something like for model of models. Is it model of or model in? And this should be const as well. I'm going to say model add event listener click. And this should do something. Let's take the event here and let's do this. First, we have to remove the selected class from the selected button. So let's do that. Document query selector, model selector, button.selected, class list, remove selected. And then we should add to this one, which will be event.target, class list, add selected. So if I now refresh and I click here, then that will be selected. And if I click here, that will be selected. So now I can switch between these, except now I broke it when I click the same thing twice. Did I get like an error because query selector returned nothing? Really? Can I just put like a question mark here? Is that gonna work? I can do this, but if I click that one, okay, that seems to work. I can click this many times, click that many times, it still works. Great. Although, now I broke it again. Wait a minute, where did I click? I clicked over here and then it disappears. Okay, so where am I clicking? If I click this one, it disappears because this is still the button. I'm still clicking the button, but the event target is not the actual button. Can I just refer to the model here? If I do model class list and I don't take the event, is that going to still work? I can still select, and if I click here, nothing happens. Okay, so I can do that. Great. Now we are selecting that. And I guess we should like change some global variable or something to know which one is selected. Although we can get it from which one has the selected class. So we will figure that out when we get there. Because when we actually want to integrate this into a chatbot, then we have to know which one is selected so that we can use that one. Anyway, that is good enough. Next, we have to add a ChatGPT logo. So let's do that. This should be easy. So let's go to main and we are going to add below the model selector another div, and let's add a class here called logo. And I am going to add here chat WTF. And let's do a span here, and let's add a plus. So now if I go back here, we have some text that is below my face, so you can't see it. And I actually wonder why it is there, because we set main to have a display flex. Let me remove the align items from here, and I actually will call it flex direction column. Okay, now it's under here. So then we will style that one. So the logo will have a background of white, although it is not in fact white, I don't think. Sorry, not background, just color. But let's actually see what the color is. I don't have it here, but here it is. So this will be the color. And it should be font weight bold and text align center. And it should be very big. So font size 2 EM. Okay, even bigger. Let's do 3 EM. That's pretty good. Maybe just 2.7. And the plus should look like that. So let's do logo span will have a background of something and color of something, and font size will be 1.2 EM. And let's take the colors, which will be these. That's the background, and that is the text. And I'll add a border radius of like 8 pixels. And refresh. It looked like that. In fact, because I'm using EM, it has to be relative to this because it's inside the logo. So I'll put 0.5. Okay. And in fact 0.4, and I will make it display inline block, and I will make it padding 5 pixels, and I will say text transform uppercase, and now it looks like that. And then I will make it a little bit smaller, and I am going to say position relative top minus 5 pixels. 15 pixels, 10 pixels, and how does that look? That looks pretty good. It is bigger, but now I should be able to just change this to make the whole thing small. Yes. I will do a little bit of reduction of the border radius, and that looks pretty good to me. I will add some margin top 50 pixels. Let's do 60 pixels. Okay, now it's starting to look pretty good. So let's add the message box next. So let's make a div, and let's give it an ID, and let's call it message form. And let's add a text area, because that is a text area, not an input, because we can write multiple lines here. And what else should we have? We should have send a message as a placeholder. Send a message. And we should have a send button over here. So let's add that here. Again, I'm not using any icons right now, but I will just call this send. And we will make it an icon later. And I guess we should add like a div for the disclaimer. This is a ChatGPT UI clone that should not be used for production, only for educational purposes. And let's see what that looks like. Terrible. So now I have to style this thing. So let's first of all take the color of this text over here. So let's take the color of this, and let's say that disclaimer will have the color of that, and it should have a smaller size, font size 0.7 EM, and I think that is still a bit too big. No, it's pretty good actually. And let's do text align center. In fact, I will put text align center to the whole thing, so message form, And then we have to style the message box. So what is the background of the message box? It is that. So let's copy this and say that message form text area. In fact, I will give it an ID, message. ID message. And the background will be that. And border radius will be maybe 15 pixels. And how is it located? It is just 100%. With 100%. And let's do box sizing border box. And let's refresh. And there is no border. So let's do border 0. And let's add some padding to the main. Let's do padding 30 pixels and box sizing border box. And again, I refreshed the wrong place, but that looks pretty good. And in fact, I only want to have padding on the sides. I do 0, 30 pixels, 0, 30 pixels. And now I want to change the flexbox alignment, so I have to use some space between or something. So I'll go to main, and I will try out these. So that's exactly what I want, space between. Justify content space between. And in fact, I will add 30 pixels in the bottom padding, and I'll say align, justify content space between. And if I then refresh this, then it will look like this. And we are getting pretty close. So now I can remove the padding from my logo because it's already handled by the space between flexbox. Although I might have to make some changes to this when I actually add the messages to it. And in fact, I added it to the logo span for some reason. So let's remove that and refresh. And it's still kind of weirdly positioned. Not quite sure why it does that. Now, it is in fact in the middle. It just looks to the human eye like it's not in the middle. It's perfectly between these two, but it looks weird. So I am going to say that margin top is minus 50 pixels. And let's see how that looks. That's pretty good. But in fact, in ChatGPT, it's up there. So I'm not sure why it's up there. Let's do 150 pixels. And it should still be higher. I think it looks better when it is at like 60 pixels. So I am going to do that because now it's in the middle. This is not good. This is better. So another thing is that I can see this resize thing here, but I don't want to be able to resize this. So I am going to say message resize none. So that should get rid of that one. And I will have to add some padding to this. Maybe 15 pixels. That looks pretty nice. And here it's in the middle. So first of all, I have to say font family is, let's do just inherit. And I am going to make it a bit bigger. Font size 1 EM. And then I am going to change the color, which I get from here. But now this is just the color of the placeholder. This is different. So how do I change the placeholder color of a text area? I don't remember how to do that, but there's a CSS rule to do that. And it is just placeholder. Okay. So I am going to get the color of this thing. And I am going to say that message placeholder color will be that. And message color will be, perhaps it is white. I'm pretty sure it's white, but let's copy this anyway and see what it actually is. No, it's not white. It is white. Okay, it's white. So let's do color white. And how are we going to make it in the middle? So now there's like too much padding in the bottom. And in fact, I should add more padding to the top and bottom. So let's do this. Padding is going to be 20 pixels and 15 pixels. And what is the default height? What if I say height auto? What will happen? Nothing. So I have to set like some 40 pixels height, 60 pixels height. And now it's in the middle. and it's pretty much the same. It's a little bit bigger, so I will do height 55 pixels, and I will do this like 18 and 50. Okay, that looks pretty good. And there's actually more padding in the main, so I will add some more padding here. So I will do 40 and 40. And even more. So now, okay, perhaps I shouldn't add the padding there because the actual messages, okay, actually the messages are padded a lot too for some reason. So let's do 45 and 45. And that looks pretty good. And there's a little bit too much border radius in mine, so I will change that. I will put 13 pixels. And I believe there's a shadow, and I think I saw a border there too. Okay, so there's a border. So let's copy that color. And let's say that the border is actually 1 pixel solid this color. Okay, is there a shadow? It kind of looks like there's a shadow already when I just put a border in there. But I think there's a shadow. So let's do box shadow with black one, or actually I will use RGBA to be black one and 0.3 opacity. And I am going to say that it is at 0, 0, and it's going to be like 50 pixels wide. So if I do that, then we have a little bit of a shadow there, which I think is bigger than in ChatGPT. So I am going to do 45 and 20% opacity. And that looks pretty good. Now I do see some scroll bars here. So I made it a bit too small. So I guess I can change the padding. So if I say padding is 17, then it will get rid of that. And I don't believe we get that outline when we go to ChatGPT, so I will say that the outline is none. So now it doesn't get an outline when we focus on the message box. Now we have our send here, so let's move it in the right location. So what did I call it? Just I would call it a send button. And I am going to say that send button will be position absolute, and in fact I have to add to the message form position relative so that I can move the button relative to that one. And I will say that right is like 30 pixels, and how to make it go in the middle. If I say top 50%, it's not going to be 50% because this is included. So I might add another wrapper here, div class message wrapper, and I move these inside this one. So then, in fact, I can move the position relative into message wrapper. Did I call it an ID or class? It's a class. So now, if I move it to top 50%, and then I move it up with transform translate y minus 50%, then it should be exactly in the middle. And it is in the middle. Although it kind of looks like it's not in the middle, but maybe that's because of the font. But right now I will just make it color. Well, in fact, I will make background white, whatever, and border radius 5 pixels, display inline block. And I will make an icon there at some point. Font size 0.7 em and padding 5 pixels. And it's a bit weird. I will say text transform none. Can I unset the italics? No. Wait a minute. It's not. It's text font style. Font style none. Well, I am going to make it a button. Button. And then I don't have to put any font style in there, and I can refresh, and I need to set a color, which will be black for now, and I need to move it up a little bit, because for some reason it is not centered. Why is it not centered? And why does it have a hover? Send button hover will still have a background of this, color of this, and a background of that, and border none. What? Let's call it a button. Okay, and this should be border none as well. Alright, now why is it not in the middle? It should be exactly in the middle. Yeah, it's not. What? Wow, what? The message wrapper is not exactly the size of that. That's the problem. There's some margin in the text area or something. Okay, it's not exactly the same, but it doesn't show any margin. It's just smaller. Does it come from like some white space? If I remove all white space, then is it going to look different? No. So what I can do is I can just say that margin top is -5 pixels, and then it's going to move up a bit, but that's too much. So I'll put just 3 pixels or 2 pixels, and now it looks pretty good. But again, we are going to replace this with an icon later. Perhaps I should have done it already, since that took me a long time to do. But what I want to do now is I want to add some margin to the disclaimer. So I'll add margin top 25 pixels. So that looks pretty good, but it's a bit too much. So let's do 15, and I guess it's still a bit too much. So let's do 12. Okay, that looks pretty good. So what is next? This is looking pretty good already. Now we have to implement this when we add a new line here. It should grow, because right now if we add a new line, there will be just a scroll bar here. So how do we do that? Well, I've done this in the past multiple times, but I always forget how to do this. And does this, in fact, if I don't add new lines, if I just add some text here, it still recognizes the rows, okay. So I think I can do something like this. Const message box. It's document query selector message. And I'll say message box add event listener key up. And when the key is up, we are going to say that message box dot style dot height equals message box dot scroll height plus px. Do I have to do that? And I'm not sure if I have to reset the height first. Maybe. Let's see what that does. So if I now write something, it actually changed already the size, and now it is growing, in fact. So that's all we have to do. Now, this is kind of funny. In fact, we have to reset the height every time. So we have to say that the height is auto, and then we get the scroll height. So now it will grow, but there was a problem that it looks like this now. So I have to set the height, in fact, to the 55 pixels that I set here. Otherwise, it will add some, like, maybe default is 2 rows. Yes. So can I say auto? And can I say here that rows is 1? And then if I remove this as well, then is that gonna work? Okay, it works. But there's a little bit of a movement there. When I press the first button, it goes a little bit down. So why is that? I could like add 1 or 2 pixels to this, or I could just add this to when the page is loaded. But let's see, what if I add just 2 pixels to that? Then if I say H, then nothing happens. So now it works. And if I add a lot of text here, then it is going to grow automatically. That's great. There's a little bit of a delay there, I guess. Was there a delay here? There was no delay. So they are doing something better than I am. But now, of course, we are going under the send button. So how did they do it here? In fact, here they are not moving the send button to the middle, which I am doing. They're just putting it in the corner. And maybe that makes more sense. But what happens when I write some text? Okay, so they just have like a padding there. So let's do that. Let's say that message will have a padding of 17, 15, not 15, this will be 40 pixels, and 15 and 17. Sorry, 17 and 50. And if I refresh the right page, then if I now write this, then it should stop 40 pixels before, but that is not enough. So I have to say 60 pixels. And now if I do this again, it is still not enough. I have to say 75 pixels. And let's try this one more time. Now I can right up to there. So maybe a little bit more, I guess I could add 85. So now it should work. So what should we do next? Here is ChatWTF and here is ChatGPT. It's pretty close. It's not quite there, but it's pretty nice. We need some icons over here and icons over here, and the send icon and the 3 dots icon here and these edit and delete icons. Now let's see if we can still close this. Okay, we can close it, but we are not stretching the main area. Because in ChatGPT, if we close it, it will stretch. In fact, it won't stretch it. It will just move it in the middle. So I guess we can like add negative margin on the sidebar. Can we do that? If we say margin right minus 260 pixels, then it will actually move. Well, this will stretch it, which I kind of think is better. But let's do that. If we change our hidden version of the sidebar and we add margin right minus 260 pixels and we refresh and we close this, then it will take up the whole window. But it will do that right away. So I have to, in fact, do all. Can I do multiple? How do I do this? Can I do like left and margin right? It seems like I can't do that. I just do all, whatever. We are going to animate everything. So now it looks pretty nice. Now, I would argue that this is better. And not only because it is easier in the moment to do it like this, because now we have more space for the chats. Because with ChatGPT, if I actually open a chat here, does this get, it gets wider. Okay, so they do something, but it doesn't quite like widen the whole thing. So let me know in the comments, am I just being lazy or is this in fact a better way of doing it? I mean, we could add a max width, because if someone is on some like super long screen, then maybe it will look a bit weird. So what if I do in the main max width 1200 pixels, and then I do that. That should be 1200 pixels already. What if I do 900 pixels? Okay, it is doing it, but it's not in the middle. So can I do like margin 0 auto and then do that? Then now it works. And it in fact looks the same as ChatGPT, although it's a little bit wider. So I can change this. Just really 900. Is it so small? Yeah. I'll put 850. So we are a little bit wider than ChatGPT. Okay. So what is the next step? We should implement the actual view of the messages. Now, there is quite a lot in there, especially if you take into account the editing and the code formatting and stuff. Or is that so much? Let me add some icons to this, and then in the next video, we are going to implement the message rendering. So I will in fact use font awesome here. And I am going to use the one from CDN.js, and I will copy this one, and I am going to paste it in here, like that. And then what I can do is I can actually add to these conversations the message icon. So let's do that. I will add an I class FA and FA something. I'm not sure what is a message icon. Let's do font awesome message icon. And here we have one. It is actually called message. So we could use that one. Let's call this message. And let's see what that looks like. So if I refresh, then we have a message icon, but it is solid. Can I make it like not solid? What is that? Regular. FA regular. Can I use that? FA regular. Or did I only get the solid ones? Okay, I can use that one. So now we have actually icons there. And I am going to add a little bit of margin to it. So conversations LI, and I will do conversations LI FA margin right 5 pixels. So now there's a little bit of margin there, and I should put a little bit more. So let's do 7 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we need the send icon, so let's do that. I think it is actually called send. And wait a minute. It is not called send, or I can't go to the direct URL, so I will say send. And I will use the free ones. Paper plane, okay. So let's do paper plane for the send button. So down here we have the send button, and instead I will do I class FA regular, FA paper plane. And let's see what that looks like. It looks pretty good, but it should look like, it actually changes. Why does it have to change when I write? So let's take a screenshot of this and let's see what the color is. That is the color. Let's copy it. And is that in fact white? It is. So I'll change my send button to have a background of this color and color of white, and padding should be like 10 pixels. And let's refresh, and this one should in fact not be regular, they should be solid. So I will remove the FA regular from here, and I will refresh, and it looks pretty good, but I will make it bigger. So font size is 1 EM, and padding will be less. That looks pretty good. But I will make the padding 9 pixels on the right, 7 in the bottom, and 5 on the left, so that it will look like it's in the middle. But that's too much. Let's do like this, and that looks pretty good. But the hover is not that good. Actually, there's no hover, so I am going to copy these things. And the only reason why I have to add this is because before I set a style to all of the buttons, which I said at the moment that it was a mistake, but I still did it, so I have to do this now. Okay, that looks good, and I am going to move it further to the right. So I will do 20 pixels. I will do 15 pixels. And that looks pretty good. Close enough. I mean, I guess I should add like 9 and 7, because it's not quite square. Now it's pretty square. And then for GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, we should use some icons as well. So what are the icons? The icon is this thunderbolt. What is that? Thunder or lightning bolt. Lightning. This one, bolt. So let's add a bolt in there. So I'll just add in here class FA bolt, and I am going to add, this is some sparkly thing. What is it called? Sparkles. One magic sparkles. That's pretty good. Stars. Glitter. I don't know what it's called. I think there is something like that. Spark. I am going to use one magic sparkles. One magic sparkles. And let's take a look at what that looks like. Pretty nice. But my bolt didn't work for some reason, because I am missing a T from there. Great. That looks pretty nice. I need some margin there, so let's add some margin. And I will actually call this GPT 3.5, or just GPT 3, and I will call this one GPT 4. So then I can add some styling to them. So that should be like a green one, and that should be like a purple one. Maybe I need to take a screenshot of this and a screenshot of the other one. Let's paste this in here, and let's take a screenshot of that. And GPT 4 will be that color. So model selector, and I am going to say that GPT 4 FA will have this color, and I will say model selector button FA will have margin right 5 pixels, and GPT 3 FA will have this color. And let's refresh. And now we have the colors here. It looks exactly like ChatGPT. Now, in fact, for the plus sign and this chevron here, I created my own images, but I might leave them as they are now. So we can still hide the sidebar and we can show the sidebar. And we have these conversations here, and we can show this menu and we can hide this menu, and we can show these things over here, and we can select GPT-4 and we can select GPT-3, and we can write something, and if we make a new line, we will get a new line and it will grow like this. Now, I guess we should have a limit, because if I keep adding, then this happens. So let's do that. Let's do height, and let's say const height, let height is that, and if height is greater than, 400, then height is 400. So now we should have a limit. Why does this look so bad? Let's do that, and let's refresh, and if I now do this and I add stuff, then it will still grow infinitely. Wait a minute, did I not refresh it properly? Or is that 400? Is this too much? Should I just put 200? Okay, that's really good. So let's have it as 200. So now if I add stuff, then it will actually start to scroll after that. Great. So this is going to be the end of today's video. In the next one, I am going to implement the rendering of the messages. And let me know in the comments, what else should I implement? Did I forget something? Or what would you like me to do? And make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.